We're actually talking about insights into productivity, gaps, its challenges and solutions. And he has done a presentation, which we're going to share on LinkedIn, on our page, and also on Facebook. If you've got any inputs, you are welcome to raise your hand so that we can be able to engage.
The purpose is nothing else at this stage, but just to enhance awareness to those who are with us today. And of course, induce public discourse. Everyone should discuss about public sector productivity, because that's where we get services, whether it's national departments, provincial department, or a municipality. And focusing on public servants is to ensure that they consciously increase their utilization of productivity management. I say so because there's already a directorate at the Department of Public Service and Administration that focuses just on productivity. So engaging on this doesn't mean that it's a new thing, it's already there in practice. So the key thing is about enhancing its utilization. And also the citizens as well have all the right and should be given opportunity to be aware of productivity, so that they can see how important it is to integrate it in public services. But then allow me a few minutes just to talk about what should we understand by public sector productivity. I think it's appropriate to start with that. Although more than anything, I will be focusing on just productivity generally. I usually share these different definitions of productivity as a concept and a measure. And whilst people are reading, I think the key thing one has will be emphasizing is that the productivity, as I usually say, is a measure between inputs and outputs. However, that has to be qualified, because the emphasis is that how well are input resources converted into useful outputs. That's why I have these red areas, so that you see the qualification, how well are inputs and how useful are outputs. And as we go along, you will realize why the emphasis. And the one by Ature at the bottom, the emphasis is on that the production of goods and services, how it will meet the user's needs and requirements. Graphically, this is what one always look to. But the emphasis why I have this thing graphically is that the black spot is that's where the conversion comes in. And I just wanted to do this pictorial presentation so that we have that picture in our minds as we go along, handling the concept. Now, what is happening?
Which slide do you want to go to?
Just let's create a common understanding of what productivity is as a concept and a measure. And also, in simple language, it's about doing more with less, which is actually ensuring efficiency, and it's about producing targeted and quality outputs, which is nothing else but ensuring effectiveness, whether it's in producing goods or providing services. However, one of the targets when it comes to public sector productivity is to ensure that there's public trust in what is being done. And let me also share a few things very interestingly, which I picked up. One, the Department of Public Service and Administration does highlight the importance of productivity to the success of public service institutions. As a result, it even has crafted measurement instruments to assess the organizational productivity of public service entities in terms of three core factors: that's labor, operations, and performance. In fact, beyond that, it has also designed an operations management framework, which is also anchored around productivity as well. SALGA for local government has actually, from 2018, started partnering with Productivity SA, an entity at the Department of Employment and Labor, on the same thing. And even globally, there is World Productivity Congress, which is held annually. And in 1996, it was held here in South Africa. No, I'm sorry, it's 2006 in Sun City. Just to give an idea that it's not something that's confined here, it's a global practice. And there's also the Global Forum on Productivity, which is driven by OECD. That's more or less what one wanted just to share with you, that there are a couple of things that should prompt us. And when we share the slides, I actually even organized references in terms of websites for those who would be interested to go beyond and get deeper into understanding productivity and the various practices. However, one also should ask, what then is the impact of this productivity, which various institutions such as DBSA are, upbeat about? One, performance is definitely improved once productivity management, once the various tools, whether simple or complex tools of productivity, are employed or implemented. And I'll be loath to name them because it ranges, it's a plethora of tools. Some are simple, some are complex. But it doesn't end there. Therefore, it ensures efficiency and effectiveness and improvement of services. That's where the ultimate impact is. By ensuring that, there's performance enhancement and the improved service, the impact on public confidence and public trust, it gets regained, it gets enhanced once services improved due to improvement of performance. And also obviously the other impact, which when interacting with experts and people who are in the field and quite experienced far more than me, one thing they emphasize is the savings in resources. I don't want to just say funds, because resources comes in various forms. They could be material other than just funds. And there's a lot of savings that are, that arise when, productivity tools are implemented. Not only that, improvement between public sector and private sector businesses on the various services that they get, whether it's municipalities or provincial or national governments. Definitely it has to improve the relations and cooperation. They definitely have to improve. And also the other thing is that these days, given the introduction of technological, of new technology, of IR and things, there are a number of disruptions that take place, whereas by ensuring that specific tools are introduced, that disruption is better managed, because sometimes some of these tools are quite disruptive, particularly for people who are still practicing or using older versions of technology and so forth. The challenges, they range from low awareness to lack of will to implement even the tools that exist, and sometimes they are not effectively used. But also one other thing is the difficulty in measuring productivity in the services sector. It's easier in areas such as mining, manufacturing in particular, agriculture and other industries. But when it comes to services, it becomes quite a difficult thing. That's why when I was sharing my understanding of productivity, one of the things I highlighted is what each recipient of services needs and requirements, how they are. Given that we have shared a few issues around, the impact, the challenge, what are just suggested solutions? It would be very helpful to campaign to promote productivity generally, and public sector productivity in particular in this instance, when we are within a public sector environment. Furthermore, intensive and extensive training, including sharing of information within the public sector, would be very helpful. And I would like to highlight in this instance, the role of tertiary education would become important. Of course, there are a couple of universities that look into this area. Of course, it doesn't come out obviously as productivity, but those universities that offer industrial engineering in particular, and you'd find that it's one of the areas that they emphasize on. One other ambitious issue that I felt, let me just drop it on the table, is that how about setting up productivity as a condition for turnaround of municipalities, particularly those who are under Section 139? And see if the National Treasury, in a sense, would simply say, when you are offering financial rescue and other forms, part of the package would be to measure productivity of that municipality, because up to now we've had municipalities that have been through these rescue initiatives, but still had been unfortunately lapsing back you know. And also we need to prepare personnel for the culture of productivity management and invite international experts in future engagement. Of course, whilst they're looking at a number of these solutions, you'd find that they tend to be more medium and long term. So the key thing is that what could be the most immediate steps that we can take, like from tonight or tomorrow on Monday? There are a few that I like to suggest, and the first one being that, providing training through well-structured and even customized programs for key stakeholders would be very good. And I'm referring to senior management in all the three spheres of government, legislatures, unions, and institutions of learning. And also, we need to mobilize the resources, especially funds, for such an initiative. However, also there needs to be synergies between public and private sector productivity initiatives or management. We have the Productivity SA, and we have a number of departments or government entities from the Reserve Bank to National Treasury, which are quite alert about the importance of productivity. And we do have quite a number of companies. As I've already indicated, the automotive industry is very alert on certain components or certain tools in the productivity sphere. And I think also the mining sector is pretty alert in this regard. But topmost on things that could be the immediate steps is that, why don't you explore utilization of productivity tools to, one, build resilience against the next adverse effect of COVID-19 and even enhance post-COVID-19 recovery? That would be very effective, and it's something that we can start looking into in all aspects of our lives, whether it's public sector, whether it's private sector. In conclusion, the productivity as a concept and a practice is a very powerful time-tested tool. And I would encourage people to Google the Asian Productivity Organization. They run a number of webinars there. They are so well organized, and you would find quite a lot. And fortunately, there it's a hybrid and a combination of private sector and public sector webinars and information. And productivity management is worth exploring further by the public sector, particularly at municipal level. Although it seems there is this partnership between Productivity SA and SALGA, surely given the complexity and the number of municipalities that we have, it's something that would take time to take shape and get rooted. And lastly, more discussions are pretty essential for deeper understanding and buy-in. In fact, one of the things I would like to highlight in terms of the impact, potential impact and challenges is, if trade unions are left behind as organized labor, the likelihood is that this might invite negative attitudes and backlashes. I know I've met a couple of trade union leaders in the private sector who don't even want to touch productivity, and it's always an uphill, and we have to, be quite creative in persuading them. So that's one of the things that's important, that not only should we ensure a deeper understanding as we go along, we should also ensure a buy-in by those who are supposed to be driving productivity, yeah, in future. Can you see the screen?
Yes.
Yeah. When we fix these slides, which I have just manipulated, particularly from your side, these are the things that I thought were just additional information. I know I've run beyond my deadline, but if you run your eyes through this, there are 2 videos around introduction of productivity. There are 2 references for reading, and I felt let's look at how far back we come in being productivity alert in South Africa from the inception of the National Development Plan. Oh, by the way, even the World Productivity Congress in 2006, it was held in Sun City, as I say. So we do have a history, and the expectation and assumption should have been that these days it should be a buzzword and a tool that is quite popular, not just in the public sector, but also in the private sector. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Njikelana. I really appreciate the fact that you have taken time to prepare, and we're definitely going to share the presentation on our page on LinkedIn and also on Facebook so that people can go through it. Once you have made corrections, since you said there are some things which are not included. I'm opening the floor for questions while you're still preparing yourself, and for questions, because as he said, it's not like he knows everything. I believe this is one of those topics when we would be able to engage and talk more and educate each other, because I believe this is one topic that has been neglected for some time. So as you're preparing yourself to give inputs and to raise questions, I just want to raise this question which came to my mind when we were discussing about having this as a topic to discuss. Government, and it's good that you were in Parliament at some stage. Government has taken some time to have productivity as one of the critical areas that need to be, taken into consideration. I bet now almost 95%, if not 98% of the public servants may not be aware of what this productivity management is, or what is productivity. So I just wanted to, again, because there was a time where you were muted, in simple form, to indicate what productivity is. And what is your view with regard to government having not considered this as a critical area to pursue? I hope you can hear me.
Yes. The first one is, what is productivity, once again, in simple terms, and government on productivity. Well, the most interesting thing is that in a simplified version of productivity, you can simply say productivity is the ratio of inputs to outputs. Done. You've done your job in your explanation. However, if you go deeper into the concept itself, it's actually that's how I see it, is that actually productivity is how well are inputs converted into outputs, into useful outputs, sorry. In what way? Because one may ask, what are those inputs? I'm sorry, see, this thing of mutilation is coming in now. Things like labor of course, essential and technical is labor power, material, whatever form of material, whether it's buildings or raw materials in the private sector, manufacturing in particular. And also, one can say capital. That's the business term, but well, we will say in the private sector, funds or fiscus. It's how well are they converted into outputs? Because at the end of the day, when you get into Department of Home Affairs, you want birth certificate or your IDOMBAS, you would like to have that within the shorter space of time because you want to use it. When you get into a hospital, you don't want the long queues. You don't want to be told, come tomorrow in a clinic because the queue was long. You know, you don't want to go to school and be frustrated that I wasn't told in time that I'm not getting a space for Inganeyam. All those things are the outputs of the services, are the outputs of the inputs, because there is labor whose labor power gets converted by using the tools, the services in various forms to the recipients. And the fact that you get your DOMBAS, the get that you get attended to in a hospital or at school, or you get better education with less money, are all the outputs that one can think of. The fact that as a business person, I have a plan to set up a factory or my business, or I even as Tembekile, I have a plan to build a new house and it's taking years, or, you know, this municipality has been city efficient to approve my plan within a short space of time. You know, all those are issues which you look at as outputs. So what the productivity does, or is to help in measuring that. I'm sorry, I will use a private sector example for starters. If you're producing these very laptops, this is 7 SIO, and you're saying you're going to produce 1,000 a day, and at the end of the day, you produce 1,000. That's fine, but in order to look one of the pillars of productivity, which is effectiveness, you've got to go deeper and say, how effective was I? Was I able to just produce these 1,000 computers from A to Z, from assembly and welding and whatever, up to the last point of quality assurance and packing the laptop? What if about 20, 30, 150 of them had to be taken back to the production line because there were some defects which were picked up by quality assurance people or inspectors and things? Then that tempers with effectiveness. That's one part. Whereas with the other pillar of productivity as a concept and a measure, which is efficiency. Surely, if you look at how people work and the use of energy, which is one of the inputs, if you're able to produce the 1,000 computers a day with less resources, working less hours, using less energy, and spending less money, which means you have improved your efficiency, and it means your productivity levels will be pretty high. However, you say I'm getting a little bit deeper. Maybe I should stop there and people should ask. But the thing is, you've got to look at all those things, you know, the resources being, if you use the same resources, but to be able to produce more, that's good. However, the effectiveness is important as well. If you have a certain target, and once you have some of the repeats, and I think also in the in the public sector, you can look into that to quite an extent. Maybe you can use a hospital or any health institution as an example. If someone who could have been attended to and get cured within a short space of time, if people are here to pick up their medication and it takes longer time, just to dispense those issues, at the end of the day, they affect productivity levels. The fact I was giving that example of, plans, building plans, if they are, approved within a specific time and with less resources, maybe less staff, because the staff has been trained, is more effective and efficient. That's either improvement of productivity levels, but the opposite also can happen. I think that's more or less what we are talking about. And I didn't want us to focus on the public sector now because we're dealing with public sector today, but I was also using a very concrete one, which is the manufacturing situation. With regards to government, I don't know what to say. Look, I started my interest in productivity and engaging even with productivity essay with the previous minister, Usisnelisiwe Oliphant. And fortunately, we knew each other from Parliament and Saswana. Look, I went to her to say, look, I'm already, inside productivity SA, Bafuna 7 Sun and all sorts of things. But I could see, Kuti Usiswam, Nomanga Basiavana, but this one area whereby she was not responding as the Nelisiwe I know. I'm taking it very high level, and one assumes even at other levels, it could have been that way. I've invited in 2020, one of the key officials in the public sector productivity directorate to come and present in a webinar, which I ran in July 24, just to say, how can we use productivity to build resilience against COVID and do post-COVID recovery. And that was it. I speak around with people because I know a couple of them, both senior and junior and middle management. And some do know, some it's hardly, it's a scanty thing. What's that? That's how far I can go. And one can say, all in all, it doesn't seem it's popular. One was very keen to see how the operations management framework is going to be implemented by the government, because it's just a framework that aims to enhance effectiveness and efficiency of managing services and therefore improving services. And that's why I was saying it's anchored around productivity, services, tools, techniques. So one can mildly, because I don't want to offend people, there's a very large room for improvement.
I'm gonna put on the spot Mr. Mazu because you said that he's going to talk about the private sector side, though we're going to host him at some stage, but it will be nice to have sort of an indication of how different is it to look at productivity from a private sector point of view, which after reading about it, I realized that it will involve, as you were saying, government, its institutional mechanism. It will include the unions. It will also include partly NGOs and also the private sector. So it's a blessing to have you, Mr. Mazu, because I believe we're going to have sort of an indication of how different this thing is, though you don't have to go into details, but just to give a brief indication of what productivity from the side of private sector is looking like.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon to everyone, and thank you to Mr. Njikelana as well for the detailed and comprehensive presentation he has given us on productivity. Yeah, from my side, I'm just going to, just explain what productivity means from a private sector point of view. I think many companies, especially the sector that have been working more in, which is autos, productivity has played a huge role, on industrial development. Because there's one area, whenever we talk about industrial development, that we do not focus on, it's is to sustain existing businesses, because that's where productivity starts. And from a private sector, in particular in manufacturing, we look at it in various ways. We start it most of the time from a manufacturing point of view, whereby there are, topics like what is called the OEE. Some of you or most of you will know about it. It's mainly this tool used for manufacturing in particular. It's called overall equipment effectiveness. So the overall equipment effectiveness gets divided into 3 areas. These areas, they are called, number one, Sisa did touch on them. It's availability. And then the availability of equipment, that means within the public sector, this is applicable as well. Be a municipality, be a government department, be a hospital. These principles, are applicable. And they have been, there's various organizations that I know that they've been working with them. So this one focus on availability in the manufacturing space. It talks to availability of machines. That means whereby the machines, they've been maintained properly to be capable to do what they need to do. I'm sure as you are here, you can apply your mind in terms of how this could be applied. This one I'm talking to could be applied within the public sector. The second one is performance. Sisa did talk a lot about that. It's speed. In anything to be successful, speed counts. We know it a lot in sport, but it's applicable everywhere. There are a lot of people, who are intelligent, but if they lack speed into doing things, you don't become competitive. So the speed in which you do things, we call it performance. I think Sisa did relate to an example of if you've got a target, if we talk from a manufacturing point of view, that you need to produce 100 laptops per day, and you continuously produce 105. That means you're competitive. You're capable to produce more than what you're supposed to be producing. And then the third one is quality, which you spoke to as well in detail. When we talk about quality, it's out of the things that you've produced, are they good quality? Because if they're good quality, that was waste. Whatever you've done to produce those, that was waste. So if I would refer, within a manufacturing environment in private sector, that OEE, you'll find it in various manufacturing environments. And it tends to drive the issue of productivity. So I'll also highlight as well that I know that there's various public entities that have used productivity to the benefit of public. For example, let's take the one, I always make this example, which I like a lot, because it's very interesting that, SARS, was one of the public entities that I know uses, it's got a lot of industrial engineers there. You will see their processes and how they do things, even when you get into their offices. All of that was done to improve productivity. And interestingly, as a result, you recall in previous years, SARS has never failed to achieve their target of their tax collections. So I think we can do it in other areas that are very important. This has been applied. I know Lean Institute Africa in Cape Town, it's a non-profit organization, has done it for hospitals. And they've done a lot of hospitals, whereby they assist hospitals to make sure that in whatever their various processes, they can optimize what they are doing. It hasn't done as well with the courts. I was once invited by Lean Institute Africa, whereby they were working with the courts to try to improve. It starts with simple things. If you talk about it, I know, it's been mentioned that if you take the Japanese, the Japanese have been very successful in doing this, using what is called Kaizen. So when you talk about Kaizen, it talks about any improvement is an improvement. I think the tendency with us when we talk about productivity, we want to achieve big things and all of that. But whatever that yesterday, if yesterday, you were capable, you've got a book, you've got a target of reading, this book has got 100 pages. You want every day to read 10 pages. And then you start achieving that 10 pages, and then you start getting into 11 pages each day. That one page is an improvement. I think we need to make sure that, we do emphasize that let's continuously improve and do things in a better manner. And by doing that, we are contributing into productivity, which talks to what I will call it within, if I will use the example of an OEE, the performance side of things. And then, and whenever when you, you read that book, if I continue with that example, whatever that you have read in there, you have captured it properly and you have read it properly, you understand what is there, I would say that will be quality. And then, unfortunately, I cannot do an example about availability because the book is there. So the book, it is available, yeah. So the availability, it's whereby, the resources that needs to be available to create an environment to do what needs to be done are available. They must be available. Within a manufacturing environment, it's whereby the machines, for one reason or another, are unable to produce. So it's an issue of availability. So I don't want to go into too detail, as it has been mentioned by Sis Tembegile. I wanted just to highlight that, there's many organizations that I know that are manufacturing organizations that are in existence in South Africa and abroad because they took productivity, they made productivity, a core, a part of their businesses. And there's companies as well in South Africa that I know because I had the privilege of working with various companies, small, medium, and big companies that sometimes if productivity initiatives were not done in whatever form that they could be, whether world-class manufacturing, Lean Six Sigma, or all these tools that you can mention, those companies would have closed. And some of the companies, you get into them, and then when you get to them, it's too late. Whatever you try to do, you cannot, save them. So in those words, for me, I would say from a private sector point of view, productivity, it's very important. And I think it's a topic that needs to be taken up, with both hands. And I know before there has been attempts that have been made, to the presidency to try to make sure that from a public sector point of view, this topic gets the priority that it deserves. And I was glad to hear now that there's thinking even about municipalities, because our municipalities, our engines of getting things done from a public point of view. So if productivity could be prioritized there, I think we'll see a lot of change in what is happening for the people of South Africa. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mazo. I think somebody who will be watching this and those who are attending today would now have a good picture and, you know, sort of a balance of how this thing is supposed to be looked at when we talk productivity. With Sisa, the public sector itself has got something called an annual plan, which departments will continuously have all these targets. I'm talking inputs now that have been included in an APP, the annual performance plan. But when you look at it at the end of the financial year, most of the departments do not get to finish all the outputs as planned. But the amount of money that would have been spent will be 100%, not 99%. Where do we fit in productivity there? I can understand based on what you have presented, but for the purpose of those who will be watching and for those who will also want to learn how to speed up delivering services in line with what the Constitution say, I think in chapter 10, where it says the public administration must look at promoting efficiency, effectiveness, also the economic side of things, which I'm sure also speak to productivity. What is it that we can do to assist government to move away from spending more money and achieving less outputs, which usually people will complain that they are of poor quality?
And sure, productivity management is part of the management tools. I'm sure I see. It's just that people whom I wanted to be here, whom I invited, have let me down. In fact, there are a couple of the chief directors whom I know who should have been here, even a deputy minister, comrade, sorry, I'm revealing myself now, whom I wanted to be here, you know. It would have been helpful for them to listen to this, you know. Look, the short and the long and short of it is that you talk of performance management, you talk of quality management, which is obviously linked to productivity management. You talk of financial management, you talk of risk management, but have you ever heard anyone talking of productivity management? No. And there is the tools that Upungumbuzi was talking about, and Upungumbuzi, thanks for reinforcing some of my inputs, definitely. The key thing is that the Directorate for Public Sector Productivity Studies, as they call it, at the DPSA, the Department of Public Service and Administration, should by now be complaining that it's inundated with requests for training, for services, for advice, for consulting, for this, because various public institutions, whether it's national, provincial, or local government, are just clamoring for getting to be assisted. And your question actually links to what is saying there, that when public services or inefficiency in public services retrogress, provision of water, provision of energy, and the services that I was talking about, you know, the plans and things, you start seeing companies looking elsewhere because the cost of those things, they go up. And when you look at the various productivity, am I back?
Yeah, you are back. Yes, you are back. Please proceed.
Am I back?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, they can actually be improved. they can be improved to the extent that companies would know that at least the cost of water and energy, electricity, is not as bad. And productivity techniques can actually contribute in reducing the cost of tariffs, water tariffs, electricity tariffs, such that, you know, at least overall expenditure or cost drivers in any situation, even if it's the public sector, are lowered, you know. So, Gabi, you're very, very right. The migration of companies, or even before they decide to come into a country, particularly sophisticated companies, they will look at those things. And if they find that, it's not right. In fact, one of the things I hope in future we'll even be sharing is that there is a work-effectiveness index, which is done by one platform and one group in Geneva. It's annual. And South Africa has not been doing well in its productivity levels. In fact, in the past few years, we have retrogressed from 50-something to 60-something. I can't remember the exact, you know, levels. Yeah. So it's very, very interesting. You know, maybe as an emphasis once again, go to the website, the YouTube videos of the Asian Productivity Organization. They even have some case studies where people simply talk about what they've done. That will be even more convincing than what I'm saying. But one of the things has raised, which makes me, you know, link up with the immediate steps I was highlighting. Because whilst it appears as simple, he makes a very good example of reading a book. That's the simple version of improving productivity. It can be very complex as well. And he knows, that's why he's restraining himself today. As someone who's in the automotive industry, he can go to a professorial level, you know, in articulating, you know, productivity as a concept and management function, you know. Industrial engineers are needed. Yeah. But of course, it should go along with the awareness campaign, because it can't just have the universities churning out industrial engineers and not getting them jobs. In fact, in preparation for my own work, I was given, you know, quite a long list of industrial engineers, and I was wondering why, having appreciated productivity, are these people in a list of unemployed people? But that's the reality of the situation, because that at this stage in time, those are the people who, around which productivity as a skill anchored. However, let me give you another very interesting things, which I've been very keen to get involved in, but it's rather slow. According to the South African Qualifications Authority, there's a certificate and a diploma. Oh. Am I back?
Yeah, you are on. You can continue. We can hear you, but you muted yourself now. You muted yourself.
Okay, okay, I'm back now, né?
Yeah.
The thing is, this mute sign simply disappears, so I can't pick up that I've disappeared. But what I was saying is that according to the South African Qualifications Authority, we have a diploma for productivity technician and a certificate for productivity technician. Unfortunately, I've never heard of those people. And I would be very happy if someone would say they are technicians in that level, because imagine
I cannot hear you anymore. Can you hear me? Mr. Njikelana. You went mute on my side.
Am I back now?
Yes, you are.
Yeah, I can. I'm beginning to pick up tricks to counter this. I'm sorry, people. I think what I'll do immediately after this, I'll see what is the problem. I didn't realize, as I say. All I'm saying is that that's the kind of focus we need to do. Is not just to say, let productivity management or productivity as a concept and a practice be enhanced and used. It's also very important to say, where are the skills? Because it's not just a very, very easy thing. I mean, look, I've interacted with Bungumbuzi a lot. I've learned how they use it. Other than them using productivity engineers, I can sense in the various companies, your Toyota, Mercedes-Benz, you know, and the others, Ford and things, they provide training time and again. In fact, a practical example that my younger brothers at Daimler Chrysler in East London, when I just tested them one time, do you know productivity? Oh, Booty, Ikaizen. Oh, yeah, we did get training on Six Sigma. So that's the kind of thing that we have to look into. And Siskabi, that's also, even if it's a long shot, that's where we need to get to. It would be one thing to get industrial engineers, productivity technicians, employed and strategically placed in public institutions, but it must go further. There should be customized short-term courses for senior management, for middle management to get training on this, because not only should people acquire skills, it should be a culture. You know, somebody who worked in Europe for 15 years said, you know, in the factories, in the companies where he was working, you know, monitoring productivity levels was just part of their lives. So what we are doing here is just to trigger attention, enhance awareness, and hopefully we will build this movement and have a couple of disciples who will raise this, you know, in one way or another. And let's speak with confidence, because there is a plethora, there's a great amount of information, case studies that show the effectiveness, the impact, the benefits of productivity generally. But let's also be clear that it's something that doesn't take 5 minutes or a day to understand and grasp. It takes a long time. Because if you remember, when I was showing that diagram, that's sort of what I was trying to allude to. The convention area, that's where a plethora of instruments and tools are used, such that the outputs are enhanced and optimized. Surely you would appreciate tools that you would use in the public sector, tools that you use even in various departments, since they are different. You know, you've got your agriculture on one side, you've got your DIRCO on the other side, you know, you've got your health services, you've got your justice on the other side. The various tools of enhancing productivity would definitely have to be carefully chosen and combined, even if it's a single or a group of them. You move into mining, you move into manufacturing, you move into agriculture, you move into just retail services, you move into finances and banking. Oh, by the way, that's another thing. What I've sensed is that banks are quite alert to improvement of productivity. You know, that's another group other than the automotive industry and mining, you know.
Sure. You actually took one of the issues I wanted to raise, that from everything that you have said and from what Mr. Mazu was also talking about, I'm getting a sense that though we may be having a framework on the table, which government has developed, I'm not sure whether there were, qualified people in terms of productivity who were involved in the development of this framework. One can just hope that there were. So the question I wanted to ask is, do we have the right skills? So you have already answered that. We probably do not have the right skills or even the right positions, because most of the structures in government do not have something called industrial engineer. So that will probably mean that we need to review as government to look at how our structures are developed to accommodate issues relating to productivity. Let me not close out anybody. If there are people who would like to raise comments or questions, please do so that we can have it on record, because when you type on the chat, it doesn't necessarily get recorded when we go to the YouTube. So I would give you an opportunity to raise hands, then we can proceed if there's any.
There are certain people whom I know are around, and I really would appeal. Whom I appeal, they should share their experiences where they've been.
Yes, we can go row. I mean,
no, I won't name them. I'm just appealing to them to just share that, from what is being said here, had we had, productivity management as part of our management tools where I was working, this and that could have been improved, because I think also
you muted yourself. Why we still cannot hear you. I think you have muted yourself. I'm trying to look for you. There you are.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. All I was saying is that if people could just share the experiences of their workplaces, particularly in the public sector, it would be very helpful.
Mm.
You see, because then in that way, in a practical way, we can link the challenges they were facing, and what then would happen is that would confirm the need to say, notwithstanding the tools that are there, that were employed to improve those situations, but still, what should have been done is to ensure that the approach should have been from a productivity perspective, because I maintain it would have then compelled whoever is in the decision making to look at even other tools that have to be included.
Yeah.
Introduction of technology, introduction of software, digital transformation, enhancement of skills, changing standard operation procedures, all those things are tools that get used, which at the end of the day improve productivity levels or improve the productivity generally. It's not that they are sort of some other special skills, but the thing is, once you use productivity management tools or the productivity management concept, you then are aware that whatever you have been doing to improve performance, to improve quality, you have to also use productivity techniques now to measure productivity, something which was not done in any workplace. And in that way, you will be able to ensure that whatever tools are being used in future to improve performance do bring about that. You know, at times I usually say, when I explain this to people, you know, financial audit.
Yeah.
If you look at the financial reports and the documents, you simply say, so much money has been used this year and so much money has been put and it was used according to regulations and things. That's it. Productivity will, with a smile, will say, okay, that's fine. But then let's see, how efficient was it when you...
Yes.
Am I back?
Yeah, you are.
Yeah, Usistem Begile has actually raised it. Ogote, you would find that money was used, funds were used by a department or a government entity, but less work was done. The inverse is also applicable. You know, one of the things we used to scream at departments down in Parliament was that if they used 82% or 87% of the budget, we would say, why so much? And if it's 91, 93, we'd say, okay, that's fine, you have used money. However, productivity as a tool wouldn't just say, thanks, Nisebenzi. It would go deeper. What if there were a number of tenders or projects based on tenders which had a budget overrun? When you give a report, that thing is not going to be revealed, Angiti?
Yeah.
Whereas if he had been using project management techniques, it would pick it up and reveal it in the report. Hey, even if they say they've been able to use this money up to this level, it has not been used. Both, it has not been used effectively and it has not been used efficiently. This is where the techniques reveal.
Yeah.
And opposite is also, yeah?
I think government do have these systems in place, but using them is another story. We have project management, but we do have roads which take forever to be finalized or to be finished, and money will get spent over and over. We do have project management systems in government, but the houses that gets built, some of them, there was one house in Limpopo where it was few, but the NHPRC certified it as a good house. They gave an approval that it is fine. So the quality thereof was compromised, which for me start now bringing the issue of when this thing, the productivity is in place, the monitoring part will have to be also up to scratch, and it will need people who are actually able to understand what productivity is, which I think currently government does not have much of those experts to be able to assist in this regard. You spoke about training, which is currently not done. The framework has been there, I think, for the second year now. The directorate is being established. I'm not sure whether there are industrial engineers included in those directorates. Something that some of the institutions that are existing in government should be questioning those things. We come up with this kind of discussions because government itself is blinded towards issues relating to expertise that are required within government. And I think these are some of the things that you have raised as you were presenting in terms of the solutions, in order to improve on those areas that we are struggling with. Those who have raised comments, can you please speak to it? Norma, may you please speak to your comment? I would really appreciate so that it can be on record. If you can hear me. because it's quite lengthy.
Okay, Usnoma India, I don't know why in Polkanje, because we share a parliament and we could overpower this and dominate this place, just sharing about the inefficiencies of processing a bill or processing reports in parliament. But I would leave it to her because I left parliament in 2014 and she would have been able to go to town explaining things. However, I really thought Uput Jabu would still have been around because he is more in Zambia than in South Africa. And I know there is a productivity institute there, and it would have been nice for him to share his perspective from that side. But I know they have their own productivity South Africa in land over that side. However, Osnoma India is raising what I was raising, that sick people who go and see doctors esbedlele or in a health clinic around 2 p.m. they are told they should go home. That's what I'm challenging. That why shouldn't we be creative and see how can we ensure with the resources that we have, we improve the productivity? Because you see, if you go to those people, the first thing that they will tell you, give us more stuff. But the more you understand productivity, the more you'll realize that it's not only additional staff that will solve the problem. Because they can have adequate staff, but what if the adequate staff is not using the standard operating procedures, is not effective, is not efficient? To what extent can you maybe not get now Abantu at 2 p.m.? They might be told now at 3 p.m. that, look, just an extra hour or 3:30 that day, sorry, you've got to come back tomorrow. We are cool, God. Because the only thing that was seen as a solution was just to throw in quantity, was just to throw in more stuff that deep. I've taken the liberty of reading, not many, I think it was just 2-3 reports, because there are records come out which are made public as to when reports or accounting is being done in parliament. You can read what people have said. Honestly and frankly, there is still less investment and less effort by government to use productivity management as a tool, to embrace productivity as a concept and a practice. There's a lot that has to be done. To me, equally, it takes place in the public, in the private sector as well. However, I must caution people, don't interpret that not a single productivity tool is used. The thing is, there are many tools that are being used who, at the end of the day, you know them as performance improvement, training and whatever, team building. However, those tools and practices, they end up improving productivity. But when you use them, you may not be saying, I'm using them for the purpose of improving productivity. So I just want to caution on that. There's a lot that's being done. You know, the things that HR people are doing, improving, you know, financial management, using various techniques. As I was saying, that introducing software in different levels, in the production level, in various departments, it does ultimately contribute positively to productivity. However, the shortcoming is that if such things are not done with a conscious mind, with a conscious effort to say, we are doing this, such that amongst other things, we improve productivity levels when we measure it. Because the thing is, by measuring it, once you see it stays at a good level, 91, 95, in whatever ways it's being, when it moves from 91 down to 83, then there's a cause for alarm to go around and look deeper as to where is the problem. In fact, amongst the techniques within productivity management, there is what is called root cause analysis. Then those kind of techniques and tools are being used as to when things are going down, when we keep on having high levels of electricity utilization and water and whatever, and we're still producing the same amount of products or providing the same level of services. Where is the root cause? We might be saying when we sit down as management, middle, junior, or senior, here is the cause, whereas we're not looking at the root cause.
Are we not so good at diagnostic and not necessarily coming across with solutions that will improve on those? Let me take a hand and also a comment from Ma'am Noma India. She's saying, I think there should be more ways to manage or improve productivity in South Africa without relying on the oversight tools, if I'm not mistaken. Oversight tools or oversight visit tools that includes almost all departments, that is Home Affairs, Health, SASSA, etc. So every day we see long queues, which is an indication of the fact that productivity management is not as it's supposed to be. That is actually one of the issues we need to really find solutions on, implementation of the productivity management. Mr. Mabogo, your hand is up.
Oh yeah, good afternoon. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes, we can.
And happy New Year to all the participants. Hey, my leader.
Hey.
How are you, leadership?
I'm fine, but I'm just excited that I have a few disciples today.
Yeah, no, good to hear you and the fight that you are bringing on to revive the public service and getting productivity to be checked up. I mean, it's a good initiative, and I think me and you have spoken, and I think I just want to come in a little bit and raise maybe just one issue that might sound as if I'm not in support of what you are doing, but I am fully. I think for productivity to push up to a level where it is supposed to be, first and foremost, it relies on the willingness of those that have to be motivated to be productive. And then the second aspect is the political will of the leadership to create an environment where leaders are given or are open to new suggestions. And when we look at the present situation and status quo in SA, I think me and you know very well that in South Africa, the government is the one that drives also economic development, and most of the resources and all the empowerment tools are within government. And what has been a challenge over the years, it's the mismatch of skills, not necessarily appointing skilled people in the relevant positions, and most of those that are aligned to a particular leadership. And now in this year, the challenge is, my leader, it is going into the elective conference of the ruling party. And you can see now that there is a disconnection between that which is supposed to lead government and the reality on the ground, because AMA factions manje have started coming out. I mean, you hear the comments that are going out. If you have a minister that starts shooting down on the levels of judiciary, does that inspire confidence or does that demotivate you? And what are the intentions and purposes of a senior politician and a senior government leader to can behave in that particular way? You see, so I'm bringing this up in order to say, because I heard in one of your comments mentioning that the central bank and including treasury can have resources that can be deployed in making sure that there is this particular training. But if you are now training those that are supposed to jack up, and I mean, I'm using my budget to sustain my constituency and having people that are supposed to be my loyal disciples, to borrow from your words, I wonder that it will now start causing a controversy. How about approaching it from a private sector position to say, if we want to have a competitive government and its productivity that we are talking about, and we are getting these guys to be jacked up, can't we have those that are pushed to be productive to start their own small businesses and be productive in that area? And you have incubators. And in so doing, you approach government for an enabling environment rather than the resource part of it. I think in so doing, it will make life a little bit easier, because at this moment, government is seen as the biggest employer. Government is expected to create jobs. Government is expected to come and do 1, 2, 3. So what is it that we can do to jack up productivity from a private sector position? Secondly, how do we benchmark ourselves with our neighboring countries and benchmark with the continent? Because today, I will never run away from this. Today, we have the continental free trade. So if I jack you up to be productive, who do I benchmark you with? Because you can be productive and inwardly looking, but outwardly, are you
Bro,
competent?
I will forget what you started with. I don't want to sound as cutting you, but I've even stopped taking notes now because it's rather lengthy.
Yeah. No, it's fine, my leader. I'll stop there. You can. Yeah.
Thanks very much for your input. Look, I would desist in future, and I would appeal, let's not, raise sensitive political issues in this instance, because what if there's someone who is going to end up defending Usis Lindiwe's soul in what she has said? Let's rather steer away from that. It's enough to say the government at this stage in time is being affected by what is unfortunately happening in the ruling party. The impact is there, that we can see. I think taking your question as gain is to say, what then do we do? But I'll give you one very interesting example. When there is going to be national elections, not much at local government level, but national elections, the state, the government, the whole machinery, for some time is in a state of limbo. I think also even at municipal level, whereby the political leaders are spending very little or far less time in doing their work because they're out there campaigning. But then there's one question that one will ask: what do the public servants do? Do they stop working and go out campaigning? No, they do their job. And they're supposed to be doing their job. That on its own is a clear indication that it is not just up to the politicians, a term I don't like using, but the political leadership, to ensure that productivity as a concept is embraced and as a management tool is also factored in and used, is actually the public servants themselves, because day in, day out, this is what they are going to use, irrespective of who comes into the office, irrespective of where the political leaders are there or not. In fact, those who will continue to inquire and get themselves well equipped around productivity. I've shared 2 YouTube videos, and in one of them, Professor Magdalene Mendoza from Philippines, she says, one of the anchors of public sector productivity is to do right, even if your supervisor is not there, which is the ethics, which at the end of the day is also extended to anti-corruptive behavior. So in a sense, amongst other things, although the reality is that tensions, differences, and all the degeneration that takes place in political organizations or political parties extending into the government, what the public servants should try and do is to ensure that they become resilient under those things. But unfortunately, that is not the case. I'm talking about the ideal, trying my best to respond to your question about that influence. It's there, but it's not supposed to be there. And it actually doesn't mean that the public servants wouldn't have a way of withstanding and being resilient. As far as I'm concerned, they can be quite resilient against it, because if the tools are there, I think also we've had instances outside even productivity whereby political leaders in the form of MECs, ministers, and mayors have compelled public servants to do things that were either illegal or irregular, and they refused. And that would extend to this milder situation, because I feel this one is milder, because this issue of including productivity management, function or techniques is a matter of just enhancing the work that's being done, strengthening and improving performance in all its forms. Look, it's a murky waters. It's not clear waters, Kulua. I do concede. So even my response, I don't claim is the best, but at least I had to indicate one or two things about it, And remember, I hope you guys will go into those 2 videos, because this is exactly what Professor Mendoza is showing, that productivity management appropriately implemented helps the fight against corruption.
Mhm. But,
You see?
but in government, processes are usually not so flexible. And decisions for them to be implemented takes a while. Meaning by the time they get implemented, they will probably standardize them, make them become a routine of some sort, which will go back to where we are now. How do we then make sure that what I think is Mem Noma India and Mr. Mazwi has been talking about, the fact that we start small. How do we make sure that such happens? Because as you said, the unit is sitting in one department that speaks to productivity. And the assumption is that that unit is going to be doing the monitoring of productivity nationwide in all the government or the public, entire public sector. How can we make sure that the starting small that is being spoken about is actually achieved quicker, considering the fact that in normal circumstances, government will take a while for them to implement such processes?
There are two things in what you are raising, Ma. One is the starting small. The other one is that standard operation procedures and other regulatory issues in government actually have a potential or do impede and compromise productivity. Well, once again, productivity management techniques appropriately applied, they will expose that. They will expose the planners, they will expose the senior management, they will expose whoever is supposed to review those standard operation procedures to go back to the drawing board. You see? Yes, you are raising a reality, but please don't be so doom and gloom.
No.
Because when the techniques are appropriately applied,
yes,
when the techniques are appropriately, they will show that no. These regulations, ziyabulala, they shouldn't be applied. They shouldn't be applied in this way. Let's see how do we refine them to achieve the same goals, but with higher efficiency and greater effectiveness. In terms, come again?
I'm saying my question is actually heading to the fact that do we start with the lawmakers for them to understand productivity, or start with the people who are going to implement, to manage this productivity in terms of the training, for them to understand also all these areas and the gaps and the the blockages?
Well, can I be allowed to be a little bit stout this time? Austebucho, Ausmasingita, and others. Please, guys, come and give some advice, because I came to this webinar deliberately to get ideas on that.
Yeah.
You're forcing me out. I've tried with ministers, I've tried with senior management, I've tried with junior management, I've tried with ordinary public servants. Just to persuade. Of course, the one area I've not touched is my old world, the legislature, that's parliament. You know, I was still working out a way of even knocking at their doors and persuading them. That's why I even went to the level of getting one, inviting one deputy minister who promised that, you know, this webinar will be attended, because it would have helped to give a feedback to others and to even link me with others, because, you know, there's been a lot of changes in parliament at times. So it takes time to win over people. The issue of raising awareness, the issue of persuading people. Remember, one of the areas I emphasized was buy-in.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that's what you're highlighting. And I do not know where to start now. I'm looking for other people to have ideas. And remember, it's not mine. It's just that I had made this discovery a couple of years ago that this is just one tool that can enhance things. Year in, year out. Year in, year out, there's always a complaint that we don't have enough resources, we don't have enough budget, we don't have enough this and that. And my response is that why not opt, amongst other things, amongst a whole lot of ideas and tools, why not opt of implementing productivity management in order to be more efficient, in order to stretch this 1 rand that we have, let alone that we would have loved to have had 3 rands, but we just have 1 rand. Why not stretch it such that it gets close to 2 rand when it works by improving efficiency and effectiveness, simply because we are applying productivity tools.
True. Mr. Mashamba? If you can hear me.
I can hear you.
It will be nice to hear you.
Ndaba msana.
And
How? Kandi, it's you.
How?
Sorry. I'm getting out of the way. Oh.
Yeah, you
What do you
mean?
Sorry, I'm so
How?
excited.
I'm
What do you mean,
listening
Mamsa?
and learning. I'm listening and learning. That's all.
What is your view?
No, but remember, we're trying to make this discussion as practical as is possible.
Yeah.
Because I'm telling you guys, if you could get the top brass, experts, you would just sit and get mesmerized when they do high-level technical issues. But it's to try and bring this as close to the ground as is possible, to say, amongst tools that should have been used, I think I did raise that one time in 2006 in Sun City, South Africa hosted the World Productivity Congress, which means the government had embraced it. But what is left is now, why are we not improving its implementation in both worlds, in both public and private sector, and particularly the public sector? Remember also, one of the things that comes out, Usis Gabisile, her comment comes to that. The more you improve productivity levels in public sector, the more it will impact favorably on the private sector.
Okay.
Not that the private sector shouldn't improve itself, but the fact that things like ensuring that roads are well maintained, those basic things. The fact that when plans are are done and adopted, it's implemented. You look at how long it takes for the public servants after a budget has been adopted. Omaspala from July, the province and national, it's from April, and better as Tembekile. When do those guys, when the money is there, when do they start issuing tenders?
It takes a while.
And within no time, with September, within no time, it's the 3rd quarter, and you're not going to do anything meaningful in the last quarter.
All right, there's a hand while Mr. Mashamba is still thinking. Let's take Masinta Zwane.
Oh.
I'll come back to you, Mr. Mashamba.
Good afternoon, colleagues. I'm grateful that I participate in this challenging discussion. I will indicate three things on a more personal basis, but before I do that, you might want to know who I am and what am I doing. I've been in the public service for long, and right now I'm a fanatic to what I call public service transformation. So when I see this topic that says, are we transforming? The first thing that I would like to contribute towards the productivity discussion is people management, which I believe so strongly that if we can look at the strength-based approach to add on the productivity, we might see things different. So maybe one time I will have a session where I can discuss, I don't know with who, so that this are we transforming could be a thing that we continue doing, because transformation or changing or productivity will not happen overnight. And as we are saying, we need to also work on the culture. It also takes time. So I'm really passionate about this, and I'm grateful that I was invited to join. And I think I'll continue giving inputs into this discussion. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Please drop your details on the chat box, then we'll keep in touch.
Okay, I'll do that.
All right. Mr. Mashamba, back to you.
But I did not raise my hand. I was just listening. And the secondly, I didn't start with you. And halfway I had to break over. Some people from Botswana here were discussing other things. So I don't know where we are and where we're going. But for the little bit that I've listened, it reminds me of some time back in 75, I think. I was working at the University of the North then. And then one of my colleagues in Africana commented that, well, look at these guys there who are building the new lecture hall. When the foreman comes, they jump, all of them. When he goes away, they relax. You know, black people have no sense of responsibility. Then I said to him, I think you're making a mistake. Because for me, I think why they do so is because those people are just waiting for the month to end so that they can get their pay. They don't know why this thing is being built and what it is, in fact. They're not even taken on board as to for what people they're going to use the lecture hall and when they want to make use of it. Then I told him that, well, if you can go during harvest time to the villages nearby, you will see how fast they work, because they know that, well, if winter comes, their stock is going to be destroyed. Unfortunately, well, these employees here you see sitting down there, yeah, they are not guided by any vision except that, well, I'm waiting for my salary. So if you want to, I'm getting serious ground, I don't know what productivity is. But if you want people to be more productive, I think you need to, you said win them over. And Tembi said buy in. You must make them be a partner in the work you're doing. They must know that, well, next year, for instance, we're going to start a primary school. That's why we're building that. And this is the reason why we say we must work overtime and so on and so on and so on. In the country, I think the mistake is that with due respect to politicians, communists, I say, don't talk about politicians. I don't know whether we've got a vision as to where we're going, except delivery, which doesn't, I mean, delivery for me, you know, it's like when you have reared some pigs in a kraal. When they say, then you feed them, they keep quiet. You can do whatever you want. They make a noise again and do that. If we had a shared vision as a nation. And we have goals that we all embrace. We are committed to them. Then I think we will not need somebody to push you from behind to do work. If the politicians can make sure that, well, for instance, I nearly said Tembi. Says Tembi. If the politicians were to take the public service into confidence and make them know why there's a constitution in South Africa and what it means, where it comes from, and why we'll have to do what is done in the constitution, and are able to win them like we usually convert heathens into Christians, then we'll not need to have a foreman, because everybody will know that there's a task to be performed. For instance, let me take our Department of Housing, or well, is it housing, whatever. If you were to go to a village, you want to build the houses there. You call people, the chiefs, the endurance, and so on, and all they agree that, well, actually they need houses, because you must make sure that the need is there. Don't go and build houses where there's no need for houses. And you tell them that, well, look here, how many of you have ever worked in the urban areas involved in construction? They raise their hands. What were you doing? I was plastering, I was bricklaying, I was painting, I was whatever, and so on. Then said, look here, we got money as government. And they would, for each house, will give you 100,000 rand. But when we'll bring material, and because we're human beings, we're not building these things for animals. We also got plans from which you can choose, because don't want to build these are deep houses where it's a hostel or some barrack or some sort. Then you say that, well, it is important that we finish building house, because next year we're going to start building our clinics and our schools in this area. Please let us make sure that we finish before September comes. I'm sure you'll have more support than if you just got there, you get a tenderpreneur. It's not even government. He comes with his own people. The government doesn't know. There's no tie between government and people. It's Mashamba with these people, and he also don't know who these people are. And he's hurrying to finish the job and get another tent. The question is, if we were stop talking the language of delivering things to people, and we try to empower them to be able to do things for themselves, cooperatively with government, I think we'll do much better. But right now, we want to do things for people, and they'll ask for more and more and more. And the tenderpreneur also will need more tenders, and then he even cuts, what do you call it? When he's not even using resources effectively, efficiently, because he must get something to go and do what? And wash the hands of the director or the DG or whatever the case might be. So the question is, well, has the leading political party and all the other parties made sure that, well, the nation buys into this new vision of building a South Africa that's non-racial on the basis of this constitution? Do we really make sure that our children are taught about this constitution that we taught the Bible right from scratch? That in our universities, we come to unpack these things and then try to produce patriots, so that by the time you employ them, they know what's happening. But this thing that, well, you'll find that, well, I get my PhD and I'm an expert in accounting and so on and so on. But you don't know who I am, you employ me. Now says Temi must come and teach me, hey, these are the values, hey, these are principles. It's too late. I've got my own, I'm a thief already, I'm corrupt already. I'll use my experience to get as much as possible from the government until you catch up with me, or until, well, I leave. So the fact of the matter is that, well, politicians, in conclusion, must make sure that when they deploy people into, firstly, the politicians, I mean, president, MECs, premiers, ministers, those people in the first place must be committed to the vision that well we have in the constitution, and they must know it. They must be motivated themselves. Secondly, there must be people who are familiar with the space we are deploying them, whether it's education, whether it's health, whether it's whatever, and so on, because it feels like say Mashamba, you must go and be a minister of roads. And when I go there, people are working, I can't even know whether the tar that's being used, the consistency is okay. I see nothing.
Okay.
It becomes a problem then. If you have got such ministers and MECs, then in turn, they'll be able to motivate the staff. And HODs who are clear, who are committed, they'll be able to impart that excitement to other people. But otherwise, I mean, if I get employed there, I'm finishing Tembi, I get employed there, deployed there, then all I'm happy about is that well, I got now a chauffeur, I got a car and so on. And people must, when I come into the office, they must all shiver that well, Mr. Mashamba, the minister has arrived. You won't get anywhere, man. But like I said, my apologies. I don't know what we're discussing. I'm just jumping in.
No, you are relevant. You are relevant. Mr. Mazui, before you go, I would love you to have a closing remarks because we hijacked you and let you be part of the people that were raising views on productivity. Just before you go.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. Unfortunately, I did mention it here, even to Mr. Njikelana, I need to take my daughter to school. For me, I mean, in closing, I would like just to say this is a very inspiring session. And I think it's highlighting a lot of things in terms of how both the public sector and private sector can work together to improve efficiencies. I was just going through the comments as well that have been made in here. I think for me, the mistake we must not do, because whenever you talk about productivity, improving efficiencies, Kaizen, if you use that term, there's people involved. I think that word did come up very strongly as well, that it's more about people, improving how they do things. So we must not rush this. I think we must not have unrealistic goals in terms of, okay, now let's do this, let's do that. I think today we're just educating ourselves in terms of what is happening and what is possible. So I hope in putting the way forward, more practical and a reasonable way forward. Understanding this, most people are doing it outside their normal working times. And I think, as I've mentioned as well, I don't think in other areas we'll have to go back, because there's been a lot of attempts to bring this to the attention of the government. The ones I mentioned that I'm aware of, it's whereby this has been brought into the attention, for example, of the presidency, not the office of the president, by various institutions that are focusing, on productivity. In particular, I said Lean Institute Africa, that is based in Cape Town, and then I think there are others I might not be aware of. So for me, I would be interested in terms of, it's clear, nobody objected that there is a need. We need to improve our productivity and for our public services, and key issues have been highlighted, which are very important, which is the health. We didn't even talk about schools. We spoke about mainly about the health, the SASA. We spoke about, we said, I made an example. I said the SARS tax collection has been done very well. And then one of the issues that was mentioned in there, how do you achieve that? It is because SARS started with capacitating SARS to make sure that there are warm bodies, there are people who are going to be put aside to be careful to make sure that the organization grow. If you go to SARS, there's a unit that focuses on productivity and quality. So they put in resources and money in that. And they put in people who are, qualified to do that. And then what is nice about, productivity, you don't need everybody to be a qualified person to do that. Just the qualified people needs to lead. You need to make sure that you create an environment that there are people, there will be knowledge. That was mentioned as well. There will be trainings and trainings and trainings that takes place to make sure that people understand what needs to be done. And the best way to do it, and it also brings, a job fulfillment to the people who are involved in that, even if they're not industrial engineers, because they start doing things differently than they've been doing. And then Kaizen and productivity sessions or programs, the key issue about them and to be successful is about people. They put people in front and they make sure that people, do things for themselves to improve their own environments. And then by doing that, it create a very sound environment in whereby it has been done. So the key issue is people. So for me, I look forward in terms of what will be done about this, and how we can take it forward and how we can have the right people, and to make sure that whatever that we do, the existing institutions that have been set up to be driving this, we do not leave them behind. For example, we've got Productivity SA. I heard about another one today, which is, I think there's within the public service and administration department. I didn't know about that. I know about Productivity SA. So as we go forward, I think as the Opposisa has mentioned it's just to be able to get to the right people who will have an ear, to what you are saying, and understand that most successful countries, globally, they take productivity very, very serious. And in particular, as we have mentioned, the Asian tigers, as we have mentioned, most of the Asian countries, they take productivity very serious, and they are doing a lot of work to assist us within the continent and in South Africa. And the example that was put about that is a productivity institute in Zambia. For example, Japan is trying to work with the South African government as well to set up the same thing in South Africa, which will have to work with other existing institutions that are available. So I hope we'll be able just to make the trigger and talk to the right people, and we're able to keep this ball rolling. So South Africa will not longer be seeing people who sleep, a night before to queue for services that can be offered, differently, if we can just improve our efficiencies and our productivity, like the private sector has done. As I've mentioned, before, I used to work for Mercedes-Benz as well. What I did learn in there, and the reason why that plant is still there, it was because it took that route. So I look forward in terms of what is it that we can do. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I also look forward to hosting you on the platform so that we can talk more about productivity. I will keep in touch because I've got your contacts, but thank you so very much.
Thank you very much, System.
All right, sure.
Okay, thank you, bye.
Bye. Mr. Njikelana.
Thank you.
If there's no other hand, I would request you to wrap up. Mr. Mashamba, do you have any? Were you raising your hand or it's my eyes? Okay, Mr. Njikelana, may you please have your closing remarks. It was really an eye-opening session for me. Yeah, I really appreciate it. So I'll hand over to you to do the closing remarks. This is an elephant, we can't finish it.
Can you see the screen?
Yes.
I'm bringing this back because of Bamsanda. He said very important things and also Nobungumbuzi, because if you look at what I've done now, was to add few things which I was running away from initial stages, that when you talk of inputs, you talk of labor, you talk of people, actually, it's quite fundamental. When you look at things, you talk of, I was saying fiscal, it's fiscus, I think is this English business.
It's fine.
You talk of
yeah, all right.
Capital, or you talk of, the money. We look at material or infrastructure, you look at energy. All those things get included in this middle area where these inputs are converted into outputs.
Mm-hmm.
So I just wanted to highlight that Mapue was spot on when he says government procurement is actually a practice that needs to be challenged versus empowerment of the people, in the sense that to what extent would certain things that are done by people be less or be having a less or higher productivity levels? Because if they have higher productivity levels, it means there's less waste, there's money that is being saved, which can be extended or shared to more people. If you remember, one time we had a people's housing process where people were trained, getting skills in order to build the houses themselves. But because of these large construction companies, they lobbied government, and that project died. It's national debt. It's still there in books, but I don't know how many times. I know directly from people who were handling it. So it's a good point. The ease of deployment of cadres to the state, of course, we're extending now productivity issues even to other areas. Well-trained, well-prepared people. And one of the things we raised, though in another version, that for productivity management to be driven appropriately, we need skilled people to work with the others. People like your industrial engineers, people like your productivity technicians, whom none have been trained up to now, because I haven't heard, unless some school is quietly training them without making noise. All of that, Bamsanda, you are very right. I just wanted to highlight that although it appears that we're just on a long trip talking about things that may not be related to the topic, they are at the end of the day. Because if you look at the conversion area, if your inputs are well prepared, but when they are converted, they're not done properly, don't expect outputs that are good. Don't expect when you deploy untrained, inexperienced cadres, who are not well groomed, you're going to have good outputs. Don't expect when something could have been done by a local community and they would have been proud of it as compared to a tenderpreneur who would build houses and claim that he has built 400 houses, only find when you go there, there's nothing. Another amount of 150 million is going to be put in there to actually build the houses because people are still waiting for them. Whereas if people build themselves, they will rush to build those houses and have them finished within a short space of time because they want to get inside into better shelter. I just wanted to highlight that it's a good thing, but the closing remarks, I'll be doing is that thanks very much for those who are still around and those who have gone. One thing I want to emphasize is that we're not going to understand and grasp this in one day, this session. I've been at it from 2017, reading, watching videos, talking to people, participating in various sessions. And number three, can people raise ideas as to how do we move forward? I feel that we should have another session, but this time we move from private sector, public sector productivity. We go into private sector productivity. And we try to just do an introductory session before we go into very specific and highly specialized areas, because at times there is that tendency. Amongst other things, although we are 14 today, as compared to the people who are expected to come, let every one of us be an organizer and invite as many people as possible, because I think to a great extent today, we have been able to understand the need for a very powerful tool, a brilliant tool, an effective tool, that we are missing the opportunity of using it in our country. And I'm glad that Punkumbuzi has raised it in a different way. I said Asian Productivity Organization, and he said the Asian Tigers. It has about 14 member countries, and all of them take advantage and are very upbeat about working under that Asian Productivity Organization, because it helps them in a number of areas, both public and private sector. So to me, Tembekile, please welcome a few ideas from people. Please arrange another session. We move to the private sector for now, generally. And if we get more people who can see how we can move, obviously we have to be sensitive. You have other topics as well throughout the year, but surely you can try and push in another one. And Also, now that we know, at least we have tested the waters, we can start inviting also the other entities, because I wasn't sure about that, but I had invited people from various places. We can then invite your Productivity SA directly and formally from you. You can invite departments that are dealing with productivity in very intensively, like the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition, National Treasury. Those departments are really very, very crucial in advancing productivity. That's all I can say. Thanks very much for all your attention and ears. And hopefully those who have been with us until the end would be in a position to take up the idea and further discuss it with others. And me and you will fix up the mess I've done to mutilate a presentation and share it with others, because the way I structured it, it was such that it would become a tool such that people can further interrogate various aspects of productivity. Ndolebuha, Kialebuha, Engus, Tebulela Akun.
Thank you so very much. I really appreciate that you took time and prepare and also made time to be part of the platform. Definitely, we're going to arrange another one. Actually, was thinking that we can have this maybe once a quarter, just to build up towards going into the technical side of things. Start with the information sessions and make sure that people get to understand. I really do appreciate. I've already touched or sort of contacted Productivity SA, indicated that they need to get approvals to be on this kind of platforms. So I'm hoping by the time we have the second session, yes, they will be hopefully part of it. There are some few organizations that have already engaged. Yeah, it's going to be one of those sessions where we're gonna have get learned and be taught on how to do productivity management and also to understand ourselves. Allow me to thank you for making time and for also coming up with all sorts of ideas on how we can take this thing forward. The information was just eye-opening for me. I really appreciate it. I'm hoping that everybody who was here also learned a lot from it. We're coming to the end now of the session, but I really would like to appreciate. We'll put the presentation, as I said, on the LinkedIn, so people will still deliberate on it, and also our Facebook. Our website will be coming out or will be going live today, but in February, latest early March. So we'll also put the presentation also there. So this was, are we transforming? Obviously, we are not transforming much on that side. So we still need to improve more going forward. And I am Tembegile Felicia Makubele. Let's meet next time and please join us. And hopefully you're gonna participate next time. If you feel that you should. Thank you so much, Mr. Njikelana. You must have a lovely, lovely evening. And to everybody else, thank you so much.